Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
Hi, I'm Alex.
I'm Will.
And we're the Blood Brothers. No
relation.
And today we're talking about Hellraiser.
We have such sights to show you.
You know, this is a very perplexing franchise because it has one of the most interesting horror villains.
It does.
In Pinhead, and arguably one of the worst franchises out there.
It's a franchise that it's kind of like we were saying in our episode about fives, where you've got a few that you've got like a couple that are great.
Yes.
You've got several meh, and then you get to some just bad. And I remember I joked.
We have, for this one, we have the good, the bad, and the revelations.
I remember I joked about that in our Elm Street episode when we talked a little bit about doing this episode.
And my struggle with Hellraiser is that, yeah, there's great, and then there's meh.
Yeah, it has the fewest great ones, I think. For at least for having as many movies as it does, I think.
And there's 10.
Yeah,
10 movies in this franchise.
Yeah, because Saw had 1 and 2 and Spiral, but
Saw also had. They had a continuity of a story to where you could kind of still stay invested.
Yeah.
With Hellraiser, it's basically a new story with each movie.
Because again, even with
with the exception of the first two.
Yeah, as in the Saw franchise, you still had you had like 6 and 3, which both had some stuff that was great, that was offset by some stuff that wasn't. But even then, the great stuff was still there and shown through, I think, ultimately, despite the drawbacks. Whereas with Hellraiser, you've got, I think most of them are kind of in the area where I guess we put something like some of the mid-tier Friday the 13th films.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that only the first 4 had theatrical releases.
Right.
The rest of them have all been straight to DVD, and usually these movies would only get made just so the production company could keep the rights to it. Right. And it really shows. In some of these sequels.
It does. And what's unfortunate is I think one of the best sequels was a straight to video one. And
we'll talk about that.
We will. Why don't you kick this one off, because I did the last 2.
Yes, I will gladly kick off Hellraiser. All the way at the bottom at number 10.
We're gonna be unified in this one.
Yes, we should. And I know this would be for hardcore fans who follow this franchise. Yeah. I know this is just the stereotypical bitch answer, but it's the bitch answer for a reason.
It's
Hellraiser Revelations Part 9. This came out in 2011. It's the very first Hellraiser without Doug Bradley as Pinhead.
Yeah. And it was the first one in years to start off as a Hellraiser movie.
Yes. And it's
which makes it that much more pathetic that
it really does, because a lot of the other sequels were just scripts that got changed into being a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah, before this one, every direct-to-video one started off as all of the direct-to-video ones started off as an existing script that they sort of
tweaked.
Yeah, they sort of crowbarred Pinhead into it to try to make, which is why there's so little continuity.
And with Revelations, they finally, hey, we're going to make a Hellraiser movie. And there are elements in it that I appreciate.
Oh, sure.
Like, they bring back elements from the first movie. But, man, it just looks like even the cinematography is bad. It's like one of those fan-made films that you would find on YouTube.
It feels like a fan film. If it was one, I might be a little more forgiving, a little, but it looks like the budget was like $100.
Oh, it's so bad.
Like,
Pinhead looks horrible, and
I mean, his voice sounded alright because voice actor Fred Tatasciore, I think that's how you pronounce it, Fred Tatasciore, who has been like the voice of the Hulk in a bunch of Marvel cartoons, and he's been, I can't remember all of them, but he's a veteran voice actor and is fantastic. And he did a decent job dubbing the actor that just the poor guy just didn't look right.
no, and I know a lot of that has to do with the makeup.
Yeah.
But I didn't really care for the voice either, because it's not. It was almost like raspy and out of breath.
It was.
It wasn't that deep and powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that deep and powerful.
Jesus wept.
Like commanding that Doug Bradley brought to it,
Right.
and it just didn't work. But
it was almost more like the Hell on Earth voice.
yeah, I can give you that.
I never said it was like, oh, that was such a breath of fresh air. I was just like, that one was the voice I thought worked better than the look.
So about the movie, it's like these two guys go on a road trip to Mexico. They find the puzzle box, and
it's like they put Pinhead in a Hostel movie.
yeah, and
that all of a sudden turns into like funny games.
yeah. One of the two guys opens the box. He gets taken, and then the other guy brings him back via the blood on a mattress.
Right.
And he does come back as just, meat and bone, and
yeah.
They do the classic, he had, killing hookers and taking their skin,
Right.
so he can become whole again. And I appreciated that aspect. It's like, all right, that's from the original, and they're bringing that concept back. I dig it.
Yeah.
And then,
but then you had the whole like wearing the other guy's skin.
yeah,
Which was the big twist.
which I saw it coming a mile away, because
it
it's just bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guy who died, he kills his friend.
Yeah.
Because I think his friend, he didn't want to kill hookers anymore.
Yeah.
And,
So yeah.
He's like, I've given you everything. I've given you the shirt off my back, and then he hits him in the back of the head. It's not the shirt off your back I want.
Yeah. Which, how do you get tired of killing hookers? I mean,
really? So the guy goes back to wearing his friend's skin, and he goes to his friend's family because they have to be in this movie.
Right.
And the dude was dating his sister.
Yeah, the friend's sister.
The friend's sister.
But he's now wearing the friend's skin.
Yeah, and which means there's a scene where they just make out.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I get why he's doing it.
Yeah.
But why is she so willingly making out with her bro?
Why is she like hesitant, but like
it wasn't even like hesitant. It was just like a quick, do me eyes to him, and then bam, we get the. Oh, it's incest making out, but it's also not, because it's not really him.
Was that supposed to be a clue? Like, was it supposed to be like the way he kissed her was some sort of clue? Like what?
It's just a terrible writing.
I mean that.
But and he even calls her out later, like, you made out with your fucking brother.
Yeah.
And it's ew.
What's funny is the end of the movie, because he's like revealing all these deep dark secrets that all of them have. Like one was like, was it like one guy's mom was cheating with the other guy's dad or something like that?
Something like that.
Where
all the standard cliches
right.
in movies.
It just turns into a soap opera. But what's odd is there's a scene similar to that in one of our favorite movies, Dogma. And it works really well. And I think part of what makes that so much more interesting is, for one, there's more people, but also it's people the guy doesn't know. And no one else knows these things, where he's going around like, this guy's a pedophile. This guy, embezzled this. It's like, and it felt there was much more of a vengeful wrath to it than just, soap opera.
Well, and it also and Dogma's also a comedy,
Right.
And
It's
the
a very dark comedy, but
the comedic timing in that scene works. Whereas in this, it literally is a soap opera gone wrong.
yeah, it's trying to be way more sleazy with it than with Dogma, where you're just like, these are terrible people, and I know he's about to kill them, and I don't necessarily feel bad about it. Like,
Well, and here's what, and after all the soap opera bullshit happens,
Yeah.
and they finally summon the worst Pinhead ever.
yeah,
And he's not even the worst Pinhead in the movie because the brother they basically turned the Cenobites turned the brother into like a Pinhead Jr. almost.
yeah, into this like, just like novice Cenobite.
It looked bad.
It looked really, really
I thought it was
stupid.
supposed to be the actual Pinhead in the flashback scene,
Yeah,
in
at
the
first,
certain scenes
yeah.
that they showed him.
And
And then they showed them both standing side by side, and I was just, oh,
I'm a little bit relieved, but at the same time, it still looks stupid.
Yeah, but Pinhead goes to kill the friend
Yeah.
because he has escaped them.
Yeah.
But I think it's the dad who shoots him in the head or doesn't shoot him in the head, but he either shoots him or stabs him, and he just looks up and he goes, "Thank you," and dies.
Yeah.
And Pinhead is pissed,
Yeah.
and he starts killing the family.
Yeah.
And I remember he kills the mom character, and then her son, who's the Pinhead Jr., is just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and then she just fades into black. It was
Yeah.
bad. But what I really don't understand is after all that bullshit happens,
Yeah.
and all the family is dead except the sister, and she goes to pick up the puzzle box, and for some reason it's almost like the puzzle box is now like a sexual thing because she picked it
Yeah.
up and she looks very, very aroused.
Yeah.
It's a bad movie.
It's just-
The only redeemable thing in it is that they did make the callback to the first movie. That's literally the only good thing I can say about this.
Yeah. This is, again, sort of like with I think most of the franchises we've covered where like even the worst movie has like something that's kind of good. But like,
For me, this might be on par with Leatherface 2017 with how bad
with
it is.
Leatherface, yeah.
I just like that franchise more, so that's why I'm not so angry.
Right. Yeah, that one has a much higher high than
Yes.
this does, even though our, the best ones of these are really good. There's just, I don't know, that first Texas Chainsaw movie is just peak slasher.
All right, so my number 9,
Yeah.
moving off from Revelations, I'm done.
Yeah. There's not much to say about it, honestly.
No. My number 9 is Hellraiser Deader, which is the 7th film in this franchise.
Yeah.
It was shot in 2002, but it didn't get a release until 2005. And quite frankly, I could have gone without a release because the only reason this movie isn't at the bottom is because it has Doug Bradley.
Yeah.
This movie sucks.
Yeah.
It's awful.
It's bad. The effects alone, when you see when the chains come out.
Oh yeah, anytime Pinhead shoots out the chains,
Yeah. It's like MS-DOS level graphics. I mean,
it's like PlayStation 2 graphics.
it is. If not one.
If not one,
Yeah.
because there's a scene where our lead character, who's a female reporter, she opens the puzzle and chains come out and just like attach to her head.
Yeah.
And it's decently performed, but the effects take so much away from it because the effects were trash.
Yeah, and again, of course, if it's a reporter, it has to be a woman. If it's a detective, it has to be a man. Like
that's something about this franchise. Now that you said it out loud,
yeah. I guess maybe it's some sort of Lois Lane fetish. I don't know, but it's like it feels like in movies like these, the investigative journalist has to be a woman.
Well, and also
I don't know why. It just is something I've noticed.
It was also shot in 2002, and that was very yeah, it's dated.
Oh, it's
a dated
very
movie. But Hellraiser Deader, what a god awful title.
Yeah, well, and it's because these cult members are supposed to be called Deaders.
Yes, it's a cult run by a guy named Winter.
Yeah,
and they're called the Deaders because he has found a way to bring people back to life. And the cult leader...
It's a shitty Flatliners ripoff.
Yeah. And the cult leader, and this... I hate this so much. Yeah. The cult leader is supposed to be... We get a bit of a continuity tie-in here.
Yeah.
Because the cult leader is supposed to be... one of the descendants from the guy who made the puzzle box, which is a concept that was introduced in part 4.
Right.
So Pinhead already hates this guy.
Right.
And hates his family. But the thing is that they clearly just threw it in there to tie it in because they wanted
to somehow make it connect to the mythology.
Yeah, and I think that's the only reason why they did it, because
it doesn't affect anything.
That family were good people, and they were trying to, from the descendant to descendant, trying to find a way to get rid of their curse.
Yes, they were trying to contain Pinhead.
Yeah,
right?
They were trying to destroy Pinhead.
Right, but
and this guy, he wants, I believe he wants to not die, but he wants to be able to raise enough people back from the dead to where he can go into the Cenobites' world and basically be its master. That's his whole goal.
It's weird.
He can't open. He's the one guy in this franchise who can't open the puzzle box.
Yeah,
almost everyone else who touches it magically opens. It's not that great a puzzle.
Yeah, it's less puzzle box and more insert the shaped peg into the shaped hole for a child.
Oh, I mean, it was supposed to be a toy.
Right.
But, oh, man, and just...
It's weird because, he wants to rule the Cenobites. It's more instead of a god complex, he has a Satan complex.
Right.
It's he wants to rule hell,
And, and the reporter has a dad who's dead, who's in hell.
What did he do?
I don't know.
What did her dad do?
I don't know, but I guess they just had to throw that in there as well.
Because, again, she has to have daddy issues.
Right. Winter can't open the box, and he thinks the only person who can open a box is someone who has died and has come back. And I can't remember how the reporter died, but she got brought back.
Yeah.
And she goes to open the box, and Pinhead comes out, and he's pissed because it's, that family who he hates so damn much.
Yeah. And
Winter's all, you can't hurt me. And this is one of the only times I was satisfied in this movie is Pinhead is, you're not the first to say that.
Yeah.
And you won't be the last.
Yeah.
Hooks.
Yeah.
Which, again, the effects looked awful.
Cool line.
Cool line, awful effects. It looked like just Hooks pulling on putty.
It did.
And again, the guy playing Winter, he did a decent job of portraying how much pain he was in.
Right.
And again,
yeah, that was the best acting he had in the movie, was being in pain.
Right. And for some reason in these later movies, it's all about Pinhead and getting the chains all up in the body. I don't know why that became a thing.
I guess because it was so gruesome and iconic in the first couple of movies when that happened.
Yeah. But it was always less is more. You didn't see too much of it, and this is just, it's so over the top.
Because that was
bad.
The thing with the first ones was when you did see it, it was super disturbing.
Yes.
Because it wasn't just we're showing gross stuff throughout the whole movie. It was when you do see it, it's going to fuck you up.
And, yeah, Pinhead kills Winter after saying you should have stayed in your family business, a maker of toys. You try to live beyond death, and you entered my domain.
Yeah.
Again, Pinhead's lines are always great.
Yeah.
Kills Winter, kills the cult, and then he's gonna kill the reporter because she opened the box, but he wanted to kill her so she could go see her dad in hell, but then she killed herself, and Pinhead freaked out, and then the movie just kind of ended.
Yeah.
But wouldn't she still go to hell if she killed herself?
Yeah, because like in this again in pretty much any horror movie with religious themes, they have this really again old-fashioned fucked up notion that suicide sends you to hell, which fuck that. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a very forgettable movie. I can see why it took 3 years for it to actually get released.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think it only got released to be a double feature with one of the other movies on the list, which I'll talk about here in a bit.
Right.
My number 8, Hellraiser Judgment.
Okay.
Number 10 in the franchise, came out in 2018. This movie had potential.
Yeah.
Because they got a good Pinhead.
They did.
They got the voice for Pinhead right. They got the look right.
Yeah.
And the people who made this movie had involvement with the very first one.
Yeah.
So
and they cared.
And
you could tell it was.
I can tell that they cared, and it showed.
Yeah.
But for me, it's still very cliched.
Yeah.
It's still stereotypical. And the only reason why it's not higher is because it's gross for the sake of being gross.
There's a lot of weird, just gross out stuff that, like, again, feels more almost Evil Dead or something like that. But with Evil Dead,
I wouldn't even say Evil Dead. I would almost say a straight to DVD version of Hostel.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of vomit.
Yeah,
it's just. If it wasn't trying to be gross for the sake of being gross, then I could have placed it higher. But it was just too much reliance on gross for shock.
Yeah, and if it was going for dark humor, maybe it would be a little more acceptable. But even then,
it took itself very seriously.
Right. Because with Hellraiser, you don't want to go in a dark comedy direction per se.
No.
But yeah, it just
Judgment follows two detectives, a boy and a girl. We finally upgraded one of the females to detective.
Yeah.
And
this was in a very Seven style.
And yeah, it was. And the guy detective, again, I can't remember any of these characters' names.
I don't either.
But he has a brother who I think is also a detective. So,
yes.
Two brothers who are both detectives and a female detective are trying to track down a serial killer.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it's the lead detective. Because, of course, and apparently his crimes are so gruesome that the guy who throws up, couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, of all the awful shit you've seen, you can't handle one serial killer. Yeah, because
the guy who throws up is this guy that, is...
He, eats paper of all the sins you've committed?
Yeah, because the guy is... What's it called? The auditor?
Yeah.
Who is...
Well, the guy who vomits isn't the auditor.
Right.
The auditor is the guy with all the scars. The auditor looked great.
I was going to get to that, because the auditor is the best part of this movie.
Agree. And that's astonishing with these movies, because it's always Pinhead who's the best part. And not that this guy did a bad job, but that's just how interesting the auditor was.
Yeah. And he's played by the director, wasn't he?
I believe so, yes. And he also wrote the script as well. Again, a lot of care went into it, which I know I have it at number 8, but...
The stuff that worked really worked.
Well, I would say the stuff that worked really worked, but that's just how bad my numbers 9 and 10 are in my mind.
Honestly,
is that those are down here, and then you have 8 that's kind of here.
This is kind of the start of the meh.
Yeah. And there's also a angel who goes to visit the Cenobites in hell, and Pinhead wants to kill the serial killer.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the serial killer has to stay alive because that's part of God's master plan or whatever, which...
What?
Why would God want to spread evil in the world?
Yeah.
again, it goes way out there.
Yeah.
It goes way into, these aren't just demons in a puzzle box. There is actually a heaven versus hell thing going on.
Yeah, and they try to pull that, who are the real, who's the real villain, and it's like, this is not the movie to do that.
No, it's not. I can appreciate that they were trying to be bold, but it fell flat.
Oh, sure.
But Pinhead kills the serial killer anyway, because that's what he wanted to do. And then the angel lady gets pissed off, and Pinhead sends all the chains into her.
Yeah.
And I think he even takes some pins out of his head and stabs her in the forehead.
Yeah. Which, that was kind of interesting.
It was interesting. But even the auditor starts freaking out.
Yeah.
And he fucking bails.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing?
You're killing an angel. I'm out. No, I want no part of this, bro.
Yeah.
And the angel tells Pinhead, if you kill me, you'll receive a punishment worse than you could ever imagine. And Pinhead's all cocky, and is just, you have no idea what I've been through and what I can do. Your God can't hurt me, something like that. And he kills her. Yeah. And then he receives his punishment, and his punishment is he's no longer Pinhead. Yeah. He's a regular human, and they show like a transition from Pinhead to human. Yeah. And the transition was really bad, number one. Yeah. And then when he has like this weird red mark on his face. Yeah. And he just screams into the camera very badly. Like, oh! Yeah. And then we cut back to the auditor who is like getting someone else to, basically luring someone else into their trap. Yeah. And it looks like the auditor is basically the new Pinhead. Yeah. But it just, if it wasn't for all the super gross shit, I probably could have placed it a spot or two higher. Yeah. But again, I'm not into gross equals shocking. Yeah. Gross equals scary is not a thing for me.
Yeah. I think gross can equal funny.
Yes, but and if it would have went down that route of trying to be funny,
if it started going in like a Sam Raimi or Peter Jackson kind of direction, but
again, this is something that wants to take itself very seriously and have a very serious philosophy to itself, and that's something about Hellraiser that's always been a thing. It's always been mythological and philosophical, and it's always taken itself very seriously. Yeah, and I think if it would have lightened up at any point, or any point after 5, it would have been fine. Yeah. But yeah, Hellraiser Judgment's my number 8. My number 7, Hellraiser Hellseeker.
Really?
Part 6. The only reason I can see you're upset.
No, I'm not upset. I'm more just baffled.
The reason why I don't, and I was torn between this and what I have at my number 6. Yeah. And I think the only reason why it's not at my number 6 is because they bring back Kirsty.
Yes.
And she's barely in the movie. Number 1. Yeah. And number 2, Ashley Lawrence, the actress, hated it. She was excited to come back. Yeah. And I think she signed a contract before reading the script, or something had already happened, and she tried to, or either that she signed the contract and then they changed the script, and she hated it. And because that character is so important to the franchise, I can't get past that. Sure. Yeah. Because if someone who is that important to the franchise tries to come back and then you basically write her out in 5 minutes, that sucks. Yeah. It should have been her story, not her husband's. Even though I love Dean Winters.
How can you not?
Dean Winters
It's mayhem.
Right? Oh, man. See, he dies at the end of this movie, and I'm fairly certain that's his Cenobite version, is he's the all-state mayhem guy.
He has to, like, his hell is having to constantly just injure himself without being able to die.
So that way you can get yourself protection from mayhem, like me. Oh, man.
Are you in good hands?
It took me so long to realize that it's the Mayhem guy.
Yeah.
Which just kind of makes this movie more fun for me.
Right.
But Dean Winters is married to Kirsty.
Yeah.
And they're in a car crash, and she dies.
This also had a very predictable twist.
Oh, yeah. And he got amnesia.
Yeah.
And throughout the movie, he's trying to remember everything, and he just has like a slew of women hitting on him and trying to sleep with them, and he's just...
Which is believable for Dean Winters.
Yeah, it's believable. And he's, what are you, crazy? My wife just died. And one of the ladies like, I know, it's perfect. Like, what the fuck?
Bitch!
And I don't know how it happens, but I think he starts piecing together that the car crash, someone ran them off the road.
Yeah.
And he's looking for the killer.
Right.
And one of the cooler scenes in it for me is when he's looking into a puddle on the ground.
Yeah.
And he sees Pinhead's reflection, and you killed my wife. A killer is amongst us. Yes.
Yeah.
Anytime Pinhead was in this movie, it was badass.
This is one of the only ones where the forced Pinhead scenes, as much as they're very clearly forced, they're good.
And I almost feel like they wanted to be a little funny.
Sure.
Because Pinhead has a couple one-liners that work for me.
Yeah.
I know Dean Winters closes a mirror and he sees them, and Pinhead, there's like two Pinhead faces, and it's all problems solved. Cool line. But one of my favorites was he's getting some kind of massage.
Yeah.
And Pinhead pulls one of his things out and stabs him through the neck, and he's just... Which do you find more exhilarating, Trevor? The character's name, Trevor. The pain or the pleasure? Personally, I prefer pain. I love that line. Yeah. And of course, he was imagining it because, Pinhead's messing with him.
Right.
And he confronts his best friend, who he thinks killed his wife.
Because Pinhead is never really there in any of these movies.
Right? In all the direct to DVDs, Pinhead's never really there until the very end.
They just have another character that was Pinhead the whole time.
Yes. Well, in this one, there is no... it was Pinhead the whole time. It is Pinhead. He's just...
In this one, it's more
messing with them.
It's more like Jason in Friday the 13th: A New Beginning.
Okay.
In an odd way.
No, because it's still Pinhead. He's just messing with them.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But we get near the end of the movie, and it turns out that Trevor, Dean Winters' character, he goes to confront Pinhead, and Pinhead sends all the chains through him.
Yeah.
Because all these movies got to have that now. And Pinhead starts telling him, yes, there was a car crash, but it wasn't your wife who died. It was you.
You've been in hell
this entire time.
Yeah.
And then we get a flashback to Kirsty, who I think it was her husband or her husband's friend who sent her the box to try to get her to, die, because she got a large inheritance and they were trying to kill her to get her money. And she opens the box, and Pinhead, this is the best scene in the whole movie, is Pinhead talking to her.
Yeah.
And I believe there's an extended deleted scene where they talk about Uncle Frank, they talk about her dad, they talk about the stepmother.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a weird, strange sexual tension between these two.
Yeah.
But because that, it's, going back to the first one, what's your pleasure, sir?
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. It's almost like with Freddy and adult Nancy, where it's like, why does this feel weirdly like
erotic?
Yeah, like there's this odd sexual tension that isn't there, or is it? Like,
but Pinhead is they talk about their past and how Kirsty even mentioned, no, I closed it, and he's just I sacrificed myself once for you.
Yeah.
And but what I want, I want you. And you opened the box, you knew this day was coming, you felt it deep within your soul, and all the Cenobites are closing in around her. And she's just, wait, what if I make you a deal? And of course he's just, okay, I'll hear you out. And she offers him 5 souls in exchange for hers. Yeah. So if she can give him 5 souls, he'll leave her alone forever. Yeah. And she assures him that he'll get all 5, and he's just, I can't remember what he says, but it's basically along the lines, I'm so proud of you. Yeah. And she's just, I had a good teacher. Like, the Pinhead Kirsty scene, best scene in the entire movie. And we cut
there's
back.
this, like, odd resentment of, like, you made me this way.
Yes.
When she says that I had a good like...
It's almost like I hate you, but there's respect. Yeah. And so after she makes the deal, we cut back to what actually happened in the car. Yeah. And she confronts the husband about him cheating and conspiring to kill her. So she pulls out a gun and shoots him. Yeah. And that's how he ends up in hell. And the other 4, 3 of them are women who he was sleeping with. Yeah. There's a lot of sex in this. It's very sleazy. Yeah. I mean, it is Dean Winters, so I'm not surprised that women throw themselves at him.
Right. It's like we were saying, it's like, this is a very sexy man.
But it's Dean Winters, the 3 women who he was having an affair with, and then the guy who he conspired with to kill Kirsty. Yeah. And the movie ends with the car at the end of the car crash, and the police are talking to Kirsty, and roll credits. But again, it's just they brought back Kirsty and they wasted her. Sure. Because outside that, if we could have gotten more scenes between her and Pinhead, this movie would be a lot higher on my list. Oh yeah. Moving on, that was number 7. My number 6, Hellraiser Hellworld Part 8. I don't know. It's bad. It's really bad. But I had fun watching it. And I can't explain why. I feel like
it's a fascinating bad.
It's almost one of those. It's so bad that it's good.
It's a funny bad.
Because and the thing is that I think a lot of it just has to do with that I respect the talent that was involved. Yeah. This is Doug Bradley's final appearance as Pinhead. Right. And I think you can just tell he's tired in this movie.
You really can. You can tell he's like, these have just gotten worse and worse.
Yes. You have Lance Henriksen.
Right.
Fun fact, he was supposed to be in the original Hellraiser.
Was he supposed to be Uncle Frank?
I believe he was supposed to be Uncle Frank.
That would have been good.
But he turned it down to do a different movie instead. Okay. So it's almost like coming full circle with him doing this. Catherine Winnick is the star. And in case for people who don't know her, she plays Lagatha in the show Vikings.
Gotcha.
Wonderful actress. We have Henry Cavill. I
was about to say a young Henry Cavill.
Who plays Superman.
Yeah.
We get Superman versus Pinhead, and we didn't even know it. And I can't remember his name, but we have the guy who plays King Ezekiel in The Walking Dead in this movie as well. Okay. Again, it's such a talented cast.
It is.
In a really bad movie. Yeah. So, in Hellraiser Hellworld... It sounds so weird to say. Stupid. Basically, it's Pinhead meets the internet.
It's like Pinhead meets Fear.com or something.
Right. So this movie came out in 2005.
This is an aggressively 2005 movie.
Yes, it's aggressively 2005. Very, very dated. Yeah. But I mean, even the poster or the DVD cover is Pinhead. Basically with like the Matrix
made up of like green code.
Yes, with Hellworld in between his pins on his head.
It isn't in like a typewriter font or something
like that. Yes, it is. Oh, it's so... Or like a digital font. Yeah. It's so fun. But the movie opens with some guy digging a hole in his house.
Yeah.
And he pours gasoline on himself and burns himself to death.
Yeah.
And he's a part of our main group of like 5.
Yeah.
And they all play this game called Hellworld, which is basically the Cenobite land.
Yeah.
The land of the Cenobites. It's basically not real. It's a game.
It's RuneScape from hell.
There you go. RuneScape from hell. But they all play this game. They're all obsessed with it.
Yeah.
But the guy in the beginning took it too far.
Yeah.
But everyone else, or three of them, are still super down with it.
Yeah.
Catherine Winnick's character is more hesitant about it. And then there's like the black sheep of the group who was super close to the guy who burned himself, but he's pissed off at the other 4 for not stopping him. And it's, how could anyone stop him? No one else was there.
Yeah.
But I guess we have to have that one character who's all super broody and, the obvious outcast of the group.
Yeah.
But they all get invited to this mansion to a Hellworld party, basically.
You could easily, like, if this movie were clean, this would be on Disney Channel.
Oh, Lord.
Like, just in how, for one, aggressively mid-2000s it is. Like, how...
Yes, because they all go to this mansion. They all get masks that have numbers on them.
Right.
And they all get cell phones.
Yeah.
And basically, you use the cell phone to call one of the numbers on the on the mask to hook up and whatnot.
Yeah. This is a very "how do you do, fellow kids" movie.
Yeah. It's so dated. But they meet Lance Hendrickson.
They even have like crappy nu metal playing in the background.
They do. It's just like generic rock music.
Just like
they have Lance Hendrickson, who's the host of the party,
right?
And he's
and he sells it. I mean,
he does.
He's Lance Hendrickson,
and I enjoyed the scene with him introducing himself to the 5 characters and him giving them a tour of the mansion.
Yeah,
and but something seems off with them.
Right,
like he seems kind of hostile toward them. And they all go their separate ways. Henry Cavill tries to hook up with Catherine Winnick, but she turns him down. He hooks up with someone else. Some sex happens, and then like Saw-like traps start happening.
Yeah,
because we get the gothic British girl. She gets stuck in some kind of device, and Lance Hendrickson is there, and she's all, "Oh, okay, just get this thing off me, let me go."
Yeah.
And no, he sets the trap off and watches it. Blades basically go into her throat and kill her, and Lance Hendrickson then turns into Pinhead.
Yeah, like he's been Pinhead in disguise,
right? Or Pinhead is Lance Hendrickson in disguise. Something like that. There's a lot of scenes where this group of teenagers confront Lance Hendrickson, and then he turns into Pinhead.
Yeah.
So it was kind of strange. But the British goth girl's death scene I thought was pretty cool.
Oh sure.
It looked a lot better than
it looked a lot better
lot
than
of the
any
other stuff that we've
any
gotten.
of the effects in Deader.
Oh yeah. And Hellseeker.
Yeah.
But again, it's not saying much. And I think that's another reason why this movie is higher up for me, is that while the effects are not great, they're not the worst thing I've ever seen.
They don't look nearly as cheap as, again, certainly Deader. I think Deader was the low point for effects quality.
There is one that looks super cheap, and I'll get to it here in a minute.
Yeah.
But British Goth Girl dies, and then we go to King Ezekiel, who has asthma.
Yeah.
And he loses his inhaler. He finds it, inhales, and the scene is so strange because he inhales and like almost all the sound in the movie goes away except for the sound of the inhaler and then him deep breathing.
Yeah. Which I like isolated sound effects.
I would say and I liked it.
That's one thing Sam Raimi does a lot that I love.
It worked, but again, it's just a bad movie that it's a good effect. It's a good moment in a bad film. And he lays down on this gurney, and then Pinhead comes out of nowhere with a meat cleaver and cuts his head off, which, when does Pinhead ever...
Yeah. Since when is
do
Pinhead
that?
a slasher villain?
Like, he has other Cenobites that would do that.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
All right, and we get to Henry Cavill, Superman, who is basically just trying to have sex.
Yeah.
And the girl traps him in a room.
Yeah.
And you see him start freaking out, and one of the... I mean, he tries to sell it the best he can.
Yeah.
But he's hearing chains rattle around him, and he's looking for the girl he wanted to have sex with, and he just goes, "Sweet cheeks."
Yeah.
It's so awful. It's so awful.
It's so bad.
But he sees Pinhead.
Yeah.
And then the Chatterer Cenobite sends this hook into his back, and he's basically like, swinging him back and forth, and blood gets all over the place, and he dies.
Yeah.
And then Pinhead walks out of the shadows, and this is only the beginning. The beginning of what? Because
it doesn't escalate.
Right? It just
keeps going.
It's a party where a couple teens die. Yeah. But what is beginning? Yeah. Who is supposed to be suffering?
Nothing ends. You can't begin something and have nothing end it.
So we get down to our last two.
Yeah.
I know the guy's name is Jake. I can't remember the name of Catherine Winnick's character. Not that it matters.
Fuck if I know.
But they're talking to each other on their cell phones, and they're being very sweet and tender. Clearly they're going to hook up at the end of the movie. And all of a sudden they think the house is haunted because all of a sudden it was a big party and then no one's there.
Yeah.
And I think a Cenobite comes from underneath the floorboards to try to grab Catherine Winnick and, basically pull her into hell. And Jake is screaming, "No, just forget it. It's not real. It's not real." And then the Cenobite disappears. They reunite, and she had been exploring the house and finds a picture of Lance Hendrickson and the kid who killed himself at the beginning. So it's his son. And basically, this entire movie is Lance Hendrickson trying to get revenge on the teens who he believes is responsible for killing his son because they introduced him to the game he got obsessed with. And they go from being in the house to being outside, and in one of the better scenes, in my opinion, Jake is just yelling at Lance Hendrickson, you were never there for your own son. Yeah. You weren't even at his funeral. Yeah. We were his family, not you. Yeah. And Lance Hendrickson, he's all, you can tell he's getting all amped up and stuff, and Lance Hendrickson's just, "You still think you have a fighting chance, don't you?" Yeah. And he charges at him, and he disappears into his stomach, and the next thing you know, he's underground. Yeah. Screaming and hollering
buried
for help. Yeah. Chelsea, that's Catherine Winnick's character's name. He's buried alive. Yeah. And Catherine Winnick is freaking out, and Lance Hendrickson basically throws her into the last coffin, and he starts burying her, and then he tells her, "None of this is real. Yeah. Because I drugged you when you first got here." Yeah. And we get flashbacks of when they all basically knocked themselves out. Yeah. I think the gothic girl, she sprayed perfume on herself. Right. Yeah. King Ezekiel's character,
it was in the inhaler, wasn't it? Or
he took a drink of alcohol.
Oh, okay. I was thinking his was in the inhaler. Or
Henry Cavill's character touched a card that had some kind of dust that seeped into his thumb. Yeah. That knocked him out.
That contact.
And then he Lance Hendrickson, I believe he had to stab Catherine Winnick's character, and I think he also had to stab Jake as well to get them knocked out. But the only thing that doesn't make sense about any of that is that happened. He stabbed Catherine Winnick in the basement
Yeah.
So Jake should have been aware of that because Jake doesn't get poisoned or knocked out until later.
Yeah.
Again, it's just a bad movie.
Yeah.
But for me, I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
But so he's burying her, and he is explaining how because throughout the movie we've been showing scenes of him digging outside, and he's telling her over the phone because she's already buried alive that he's buried all of them alive, and he's given them all an air hole so they can suffer.
Right.
Which that's dark.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's a big reason why it's so up for me because this really isn't a Hellraiser movie. It just has Pinhead in it near the very end, which and for me I had fun with this because it was it tried to deviate from the normal of what was happening in these straight to DVDs, which worked for me.
Yeah.
And Lance Hendrickson was charismatic enough, and the rest of the cast was solid enough that I didn't lose interest. And even though, I saw everything coming, it was still fun. And one of the better parts for me was when he's telling Catherine Winnick's character how the other three characters actually died.
Right.
Since they were imagining everything that happened to them. The gothic girl actually clawed herself to death. Yeah. Trying to get the device off of her. Yeah. King Ezekiel's asthma actually is what killed him. Yeah. And then Superman died of straight up fear. Yeah. Which I feel that was for me that was a cop out. Yeah. But
that's some Padme shit
there. He had to die, but they couldn't explain it, so it was just, he just died of fear. Yeah. I mean, Lance Hendrickson sells the line. Yeah. And Mike, he just died of good old-fashioned, straight-up fear. Yeah. And then they cut to Henry Cavill just,
yeah, like it has a heart attack or something.
Bad.
He just seizes up, yeah.
But the movie ends with the cops finding Jake and Chelsea. Yeah. And they were just, well, how'd you've been missing for days. Yeah. And, shock to her. And he was, well, how'd you find us? Anonymous phone call. And then she sees the ghost of the first dead kid in the window. So apparently his ghost made the call. Again, cop out because they couldn't figure out how to get them out of it.
What the hell?
And then we cut to Lance Hendrickson, who has the actual puzzle box. And he opens it, and the real Pinhead finally shows up. And we get, what should have been an epic moment of two horror movie icons duking it out. Lance Hendrickson's in total denial. Is just, I need to wake up. I need to wake up. And Pinhead, for once, we don't get all the chains. Yeah. He just sends the Chatterer after him with the weird swing axe thing. Yeah. Cuts him in half. And Pinhead's just, how's that for a wake-up call? Loved it. The cheap bad effect
of him being sliced
in half. Because, they don't show, they don't pan up and you see his whole body. You just see the torso and where he was cut. Yeah. And his blood looked like green, yellow, and red. It was gooey. It looked bad.
What it made me think of was, did you ever see Tusk?
No.
Okay, so in Tusk, there's this one thing that there's supposed to be this viral video, and it's parodying. Do you remember the Star Wars Kid viral video? Yeah. Where it's parodying that, where it's this kind of chubby kid playing with a samurai sword, and he cuts his leg off by accident. And Kevin Smith had this college film class do the animation for it. And so it didn't look very good, but it was never really supposed to. Because, that was kind of part of the gag, was that Kevin Smith wanted to give these college kids sort of almost like a way of being in the movie. Okay. But it was never supposed to be that convincing. That was also kind of part of the joke. And it felt like that, where it was just
It was bad. Because
it was very Tom and Jerry.
You hear the slice happen, and you see Lance Henriksen's little blood come out from his lip, and then he falls down, and then you see the terrible effect.
It felt very Tom and Jerry.
And then the movie ends with Jake and Chelsea driving off into the sunset, and he points out the sunset to her because he promised her a sunset or a sunrise. I think it was sunrise, so I don't know why they're watching the sunset, but whatever.
Something like,
and then all of a sudden, Lance Henriksen appears in the back of the car and tries to make them crash.
Like,
and
now he really is a ghost or something.
And they were just, imagining him. It was like, was that a way of... Was that a weird way of saying that, letting them know that he's actually dead? Or, it was just bad.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed the concept of they were buried alive the whole time.
Yeah.
And again, it did enough for me to keep me intrigued.
Sure. And
I just, for me, it was fun.
Okay. Yeah.
It was bad, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And it's actually... This is one of the ones that wasn't a Hellraiser movie. This is actually based off a short story called Dark Can't Breathe.
Okay.
And they basically modified the script into Hellraiser Hellworld.
I don't think I knew that.
Fun fact for you.
Cool.
But that was my number 6. My number 5, Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth.
Yeah.
I wanted to like this movie much.
I did too.
Doug Bradley just hams it up.
Oh yeah,
he brings it as Pinhead.
He's playing a comic book villain in this movie.
Yes, and Pinhead's look is actually very different in this movie. His pins are longer. His voice has a higher pitch.
It's
than usual.
Like I was saying, it's almost like his voice in Revelations, where it's more of a, I don't know, kind of almost like Freddy in the first Nightmare movie.
Yeah.
Where it's more just, it's like, it's demonic, but it's not like, it's demonic, but it's not like, it's not literally Satan.
Yes.
It's not bellowing.
But the reason why I can't put it any higher is just, this movie came out in, I think, 1992. And when Pinhead arrives in full person, it starts turning everyone else into Cenobites. Their Cenobite looks are god fucking awful.
Yeah.
We get a cameraman Cenobite.
Yeah.
We get a DJ Cenobite.
Yeah.
It's so dated.
It feels,
and it looks so bad.
Yeah, this was straight up. This was straight up SNL sketch.
With those newer Cenobites.
That's what I'm saying. Like it.
And the thing is that the build up to that.
Yeah. Pretty solid. Yeah.
Not the best acting.
Yeah.
Our lead character Joey, not the best actress.
No.
But she was cute and blonde, so I guess they cast her. But I didn't hate her.
Sure.
And it wasn't god awful. It just wasn't good.
Yeah.
But it was solid.
Yeah.
And we pick up from the end of part 2 where Pinhead's head is in this weird pillar that some guy takes. And
it kept making me think of Tracy Tree from Rainforest Cafe.
I'm never going to be able to go there the same. Damn you.
You're welcome.
But we find out more about Pinhead the human.
We do.
Before he turned into a Cenobite.
Yeah.
And because at the end of part 2, his human self got separated from his Cenobite entity.
Right.
So, and I think that's why Pinhead's look and voice in this one is so different, because this is
it's not
just
two beings.
It's not two beings. This is just the demon who just wants to raise all kinds of hell, pun intended, and chaos just as much as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And,
or demonly possible. And Joey, who I believe is a TV news reporter. Okay.
I can't even remember what led her to Pinhead, but she also has a dead dad, because of course she does. Why do all the female leads in this franchise have dead dads?
Maybe they were originally supposed to be Disney princesses.
Oh God. I can just...
So they have to have a
all
dead
I can
parent?
imagine now is like those old 2000s Disney commercials or promos.
Yeah.
I can just see Pinhead, instead of a wand, he takes one of his pens, forms the Mickey Mouse thing.
And you're watching Disney Channel. This is Pinhead from Hellraiser, and you're watching Disney Channel.
I'm not gonna lie, I would tune into that sitcom.
Oh, hell yes.
But Pinhead is stuck in a wall, and he needs blood to power up. And one of my favorite lines is the guy is basically he's an asshole.
Yeah.
And he has sex with a girl, and then tells her to, get the hell out. I want nothing to do with you. And she's all pissed, and she got too close to the pillar, and Pinhead sends chains after her, and rips off all of her skin, and then just sucks her into the pillar. Yeah. Not the best effect. No. But it was just like, oh shit!
It was a great, like, oh Lord, we're in for something.
Yes, because when the chains come out for her, you see like Pinhead start, like, his eyes open, he's screaming, and his mouth is bloody red. Yeah. Like, it was fascinating. Yeah. And the guy is sitting back in his bed, and he just goes, Jesus Christ! Not quite.
Oh, yeah, not quite.
And it was just so cool.
That was...
And Pinhead convinces him to, bring him more chicks and whatnot. Yeah. And he tries to get one girl who had already rejected him, who's been hanging out with our lead female character, Joey. Yeah. And she goes, and the guy does some horrible acting.
Yeah.
I think he has a line where he's just, I would never want to hurt you. Yeah. It pains me to see you like this.
And not just the men, but the women and the children too.
Compared to that, Hayden Christensen should have gotten an Oscar. This guy's facial expressions were so awful.
It was like...
why do you look like that? Like, you're supposed to be tricking her, and you still look evil. Yeah. Like, the hell?
He might as well just have like a curly mustache or something. Right? Like, it was just so...
But he tries to give her to Pinhead. He can't do it, and she knocks him out, and Pinhead convinces her to sacrifice him to Pinhead, and she does. And him getting killed by Pinhead was actually pretty cool, because he starts coming to, because she knocked him out, and he starts waking up, and he realizes where he's at, and he tries to get away, and Pinhead, he gets him with the chain, and then you see, like, the camera pans up from his point of view to where he's looking up at Pinhead, and it's just Pinhead's face in the pillar. Yeah. Like, it's just a face, but it's still powering. Yeah. And, towering over him. And Pinhead, sends a weird drill through his head and whatever. Yeah. And then, we see Pinhead in full costume, and he extends his hand to the other girl. And, of course, he turns her into a Cenobite, and her whole thing is that she likes to stick a cigarette in her throat. It's weird. Yeah. And that's when he goes on his massacre of... We have such signs to show you. He he's in the club and he chains all the doors shut and he just, shall we begin?
Yeah.
Cool line. And then again, everything building up to that was solid because we got scenes with Joey with the human version of Pinhead,
Right.
of him telling her, you have to stop him because he used to be restrained because he had some human in him, which is why he didn't just kill anybody. He would only kill whoever opened the box. But since this is just a pure evil entity, it's going after everybody.
Yeah.
And
this is where the stupid begins.
Yes, and basically tries to conquer Earth or whatever. But he... his first encounter with Joey, I thought worked pretty good.
Yeah.
He's emerging out of the shadows at this table with a bunch of dead bodies.
Yeah.
And he's just, but you don't have to suffer. Just give me the box. And she's just, no, I'm not going to give you the box. And he's like, no, don't debate with me, girl. Just come over here and die while you still have the option of doing it quickly. Like, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's just, you're going to have to come get me, you ugly fuck.
Yeah.
And he's just, oh, splendid.
Yeah.
And he sends all the Cenobites after her.
Yeah.
And she recognizes the cameraman because it was her cameraman.
Right.
And they start, and then all the other Cenobites start killing cops and whatever. And I remember the cameraman kills a cop and he just goes, that's a wrap. It was awful. Everything up to that point is good. And then we get 90 Cenobites. And it's so awful.
90s Cenobites.
Even Pinhead knows they're bad. Because Joey's like, for some reason, just sitting there trying to figure out the box instead of figuring out the box. And he's sending all the Cenobites after her, and he's just, they're handmade. A shadow of my former troops.
Yeah.
Like, a shadow of his former troops.
Yeah.
He knows they're bad.
Yeah.
And, she figures out the puzzle box and starts sending all of them back. And all of a sudden, she's in Vietnam where her dad died.
Yeah.
And she gives the puzzle box to her ghost dad, and it's actually Pinhead playing a trick on her. And then human Pinhead shows up, and they start fusing together.
Yeah.
Or, at first, Demon Pinhead puts her in a weird contortion.
And
he's just, come on, you're enjoying this just as much as I am.
Yeah.
And
it became a parody of itself.
It really did. And really quickly. Like, it was building up, and then...
as soon as the club scene
happened, it just goes down.
Oh, yeah.
It went from being pretty solid to a very bad SNL sketch.
That was the Freddy putting on the sunglasses of the Hellraiser franchise. And
it wasn't necessarily...
This is a shitty comedy now, isn't it?
And it wasn't necessarily the club scene, because it's a good scene. It's the after effect of seeing the very terrible looking Cenobites.
Yeah.
That's when it started going downhill.
As soon as they enter, you're just like, oh no.
Yeah. It was just, oh, so this is shit.
Yeah.
But the human Pinhead starts fusing back with his evil self.
Yeah.
And Joey uses the box to send him back to hell. And then she buries the box on a construction site. And it ends with, it's now a building with you see the variants of the puzzle box inside the building. Yeah. And fun fact, this is where Pinhead finally got his name.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Because up to this point,
lead Cenobite.
And he got the name Pinhead because Joey pulls out the puzzle box. Play with this, Pinhead!
Yeah.
And that's how he got the name. Not a badass way, a terrible, almost cheesy action movie one-liner.
Yeah.
That's how we got the name.
Well, it's kind of like how Jason got his mask in one of the worst Friday movies.
Speaking of Friday, I got this as a Christmas present. Friday the 13th cup. My girlfriend got it for me. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And shout out to Dead Meat, by the way. Will actually got this for me for the set because we both love Dead Meat.
Yeah.
So
We're
just like Pinhead.
Yeah.
Shout out.
And Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oh no. Okay, you've really been taking it far tonight. First killing hookers and now Jeffrey Dahmer. Damn, man.
It's been a long week.
You're in a dark place for this one.
As opposed to before.
Good. Moving on. My number 4.
Yeah.
Hellraiser Inferno, Hellraiser 5.
Yeah.
This came out in 1996.
This was the first direct-to-video one.
The first direct-to-video, which
is a shame.
It really is, because to me, this started the downfall for the franchise. But this is not a bad movie.
No.
It's a really good movie. But again, and I think what hurts it is that this wasn't meant to be a Hellraiser movie.
Again,
this was some kind of detective.
Yeah, it was going to be
script.
sort of like a Seven or Silence of the Lambs, where it's a horror detective movie.
Yes, and it just kept getting reworked until Pinhead got shooed in.
Yeah.
And then they just, I believe it was going to just be called Inferno, and then, Pinhead got put into it, so Hellraiser, Inferno. And
which sounds like it could be the title of a Hellraiser movie, reasonably, but...
Yeah. You would think it would. But,
right.
and the thing is that even though this wasn't written to be a Hellraiser movie, it's one of the best ones.
It is.
Pinhead's look is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They finally dial him back.
Yeah.
And this is one of Doug Bradley's favorite performances.
It is. Cool.
Doug Bradley read the script and loved it.
Yeah.
And he loved that Pinhead was no longer necessarily evil. It's more of he's
a tool.
He's a tool.
He's an arm of Satan, essentially. He's
like an observer who is passing judgment.
Yeah, he's
passing judgment on someone who is coming into his world, basically.
He's the hitman. He's not the one who put out the hit.
Yeah. A big reason for me why it's not in my top 3 is I was disappointed with the reveal of Pinhead.
Oh, yeah.
Because our lead character, played by Craig Sheffer, who's a fantastic actor, he's going after this serial killer called the Engineer.
Right.
And he's seeing a therapist played by James Remar.
Who is awesome.
And James Remar kind of reveals himself to be the engineer who's also Pinhead.
Right.
And when James Remar transforms into Doug Bradley's Pinhead, I was just disappointed.
We don't get any more James Remar.
Yeah, he's done. And I was just...
Why would you take away James Remar from us?
He was like the most intriguing part of the movie.
Yeah.
And even when Craig...
Because he was already a cool villain.
Exactly. And Craig Sheffer, he turns around and for some reason he's in the snow and he's just, "You're the engineer." And James Remar's just, "It's as good a name as any." Yeah. And then transforms into Pinhead. And it's a big reason why it's at number 4 for me, because you had an interesting villain and then you can tell that, oh, this is the precise moment that Pinhead was shoehorned into this thing.
Yeah, for real.
And... I mean, all the stuff with Pinhead is cool. We find out that Craig Sheffer, who's playing a detective, is a corrupt detective. And he opened the box near the beginning of the film, or at least he dreamed that he did. But turns out he actually did open the box.
Right.
And he's been in hell this whole time. And Pinhead's been torturing him.
But that reveal didn't feel as stupid.
It didn't feel as stupid. It felt stupid when they repeated it in part 6.
Exactly.
Because it's literally the same twist.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you think you're going after someone awful, but you're the one who's awful.
Yeah.
By the way, you've been in hell this whole time. Yeah. But with this, it actually worked, and you really feel like there's consequences for Craig Sheffer because the hooks come and they get them, and they don't look. The effects on this doesn't actually look bad.
No, it really doesn't.
And Pinhead's monologue at the end of the movie is fucking epic.
Mm-hmm.
His whole what is the point of chess? To kill the king. And who is the game in this game? You are your own king.
Yeah.
And just he sees like an evil version of himself and an innocent kid, and his evil self kills the kid, and he's screaming. And Pinhead just has so many cool lines in this scene. Just and like the organ playing in the background, fucking elevates it so much. Like Pinhead has lines like, "You have forsaken yourself. Your flesh is killing your spirit."
Yeah.
Just lines that just Doug Bradley was on fucking fire. I don't know.
Pun intended.
I don't know what got into him for this movie, but damn, it worked. And then of course, the chains finally get Craig Sheffer's face, and we get a close up on Pinhead. Organ stops playing. Welcome to hell. And then the music picks up, and Craig Sheffer gets ripped apart.
Yeah.
And the end movie is him doing the cycle all over again because he's in hell. It's such a solid movie.
It really is.
But it got hurt by the straight to DVD release.
Yeah.
I can't place it higher because it wasn't meant to be a Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And I can't place it higher because James Remar stole the show, and after he disappeared, it just, not that I wasn't interested in the rest of the movie, it was just, damn, we don't have him now.
Yeah, because he was such a cool villain.
Mm-hmm. My number 3 is Hellraiser Bloodline.
Yeah.
Came out in 1996, Part 4, the last theatrical release. I know it's a mess, but for me, this is like the closest thing I can compare this to is to Halloween 6's The Curse of Michael Myers.
Okay.
Is that the people who made it cared, and there was so much that went into it that got screwed over by the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I give it somewhat of a pass, because I have seen some deleted footage or footage that never got put into the film.
I'm that way with Spider-Man 3, where it's like I know how badly the studio fucked them up when they were still in pre-production.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't be too mad because like everyone involved is like, you guys screwed us. We're doing the best we can.
and for me, that's how I felt about this one. And this one, you can definitely tell they dive headfirst into mythology. Yeah. And
well, because it goes into full-on sci-fi.
It does.
At the end of it.
And I hate that the most thing that this movie is well known for is Pinhead in space.
Right.
But the movie is so much more than that, because we follow 3 different generations of the same family bloodline, and it's played by the same actor. Yeah. Which I thought was really neat.
This movie needed to be a 2-parter.
Is
what this movie needed 2 parts, and each one given the full 2 hours.
Yeah. Because it's the theatrical version is definitely rushed. It's choppy. You can tell things got left out or things were edited very strangely.
It's like when you see a trailer.
And we don't even get Pinhead until halfway through the film.
It's like when you
but it works.
It's like when you see a trailer for an R-rated movie where you can tell they cut an F-bomb there or like redubbed it for the trailer so they could show it on TV.
Yes. And just given how much I know what this movie was supposed to be, I can give it a pass. And I do think the premise is interesting.
Yeah.
We find out the origins of the puzzle box, and some dude and Adam Scott use black magic to curse it to bring demons into the world. And we actually get like a not like a lead Cenobite, but we do get a female demon named Angelique. Yeah. And she's vastly different from Pinhead. Yeah. Because Pinhead's all about torture, and she's all about like being sexy.
She's
and
more of a
seductive.
succubus
Yeah,
than
That's a
this
great way to describe
like
it.
servant of the devil.
yes.
She's more like this malevolent succubus.
But the thing is that
Whereas
where I think
Pinhead is like rules.
well, and my issue with this is that they do have like a loose continuity with 3 because the modern day generation of this family, they're the ones who are running that big building that Joey buried the puzzle box in.
Right.
Very loose continuity.
It's
but
just
it's not
kind
like
of
it matters.
just to acknowledge that it did in fact happen.
Yeah. But the story being told from 3 different generations, all dealing with the demons and trying to overcome it. For me, it's intriguing and it works. It kind of sucks that it ends up in space, because usually when a horror villain goes to space, that's when you jump the shark.
Yeah.
And Pinhead definitely jumps the shark.
Luckily, Jason had already started sucking before they put him in space, so it was it really was just kind of a fuck it.
And we were 10 movies deep.
Exactly.
I mean, Jason X literally only exists because they wanted to make a Friday the 13th because they couldn't do Freddy versus Jason yet.
Because it was still in legal battles.
Yeah, that's literally the only reason why Jason
yet.
X got made.
Yeah, and so it was like, well, let's make it in the future so it can take place after that.
Exactly. But it was just... It's a fascinating movie.
It is.
Pinhead has some of his best dialogue in this movie. Almost everything he says is so damn quotable.
Yeah, this is really... Doug Bradley almost treated this like a Shakespeare character.
Definitely in this
I mean, like in this one,
and him and Angelique teaming up, but also clashing.
Yeah.
Which you got a sense of that, but you didn't see enough of it because I mean there was more, but the studio screwed them over.
Right.
And I like how in this one Pinhead has a Cenobite dog.
Yeah.
That was kind of...
He has a hellhound.
Yes, that was kind of silly, but
it was, but it also could have worked if it was handled better.
Yeah, because again, it's Pinhead in space.
Right.
But all of Pinhead's dialogue is so great in this movie.
Oh yeah.
When he encounters the twin cops, and he's just, "Gentlemen, I am pain."
Yeah.
Badass. And then I know your fear. I hear it. Please don't separate me from my brother. I give you my word, that'll never happen. And then fuses them together.
Yeah.
Shit, man.
That's fucked up.
And even when Pinhead gets into space.
Yeah.
When he first arrives and he's talking to Merchant, he's just, is that any way to treat an old friend of the family?
Yeah.
Tell the truth. You're pleased to see me. Your impatience has matched my own.
Yeah.
Some great stuff. And he even respects Merchant. With you and your ancestors proved worthy opponents. The taste of victory is almost bittersweet.
Yeah.
And he sees Earth, the Garden of Eden, a garden of flesh.
Yeah. Again, all of it is poetry.
Right? And I think that, for me, this movie is what made me such a big fan of the Pinhead character.
Yeah.
Because it is almost Shakespearean.
Yeah.
And even though he's a demon, there's a gracefulness to him and an elegance to that Doug Bradley brought to the character. Yeah. And
because it's he doesn't enjoy what he's doing, he enjoys doing it though.
Yeah. And
a little too much. Yeah.
And going back when he's in the second chapter of the movie where they're in the modern day, and he's confronting that generation, that Merchant. He's I remember he's walking down a dark hallway at him, and he's just no longer we have to seep into your world like rats through cracks in the baseboard.
Yeah.
But the thing that I didn't understand about Pinhead, and I think this is where part 3 and part 4 got it wrong, is that Pinhead's not trying to bring hell to Earth and rule the Earth.
No.
He's just a demon.
Yeah.
From, he worships a god called the Leviathan.
Yeah.
Which
is a biblical reference.
Yeah, he's in an entirely different dimension.
Yeah.
He's not trying to take over the Earth. It's
Yeah.
you open the puzzle box and you get taken.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where 3 and 4 really messed up.
Yeah.
For me is that.
Yeah.
And even in this one,
because they wanted to make him a more traditional horror villain.
Yeah, but and I think what works for him in his favor though is that he's kind of like Freddy. He's a character.
Yeah.
He's not just silent. I'm gonna kill you. Not say a word. He's an actual character.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what makes him so great. And one of my favorite lines in the whole franchise is in this movie. It's he's in the big building, and Angelique is telling him that a man built it, and he can help bring hell to the earth, or he can send us all to our ruin. And Pinhead's just looking around the room, and he's just, this is not a room. This is a Holocaust waiting to wake itself. Like,
yeah,
so fucked up.
Yeah.
But damn, I just, all of his lines in this movie were great.
Yeah.
And honestly, as bad as this movie is, Pinhead is the star, and Pinhead just elevates it.
Absolutely.
And I do like the fact that there was some finality.
There was, yeah.
Turns out the big space station that Merchant had was the puzzle box.
Yeah, it was a puzzle box that was intended to contain him.
Yes, contain and kill.
Yeah, and kill.
And it does. We see the death of Pinhead.
Yeah.
And when they're flying away, Merchant is, I think, speaking to Pinhead through a radio or something. Just welcome to Oblivion, and you see Pinhead just go, "Amen."
Yeah.
It was good.
Accepting his fate.
Yes. Yeah. The only thing that bothered me about that is the fact that his last conversation with Merchant is through a hologram.
Yeah.
It felt rushed at that point.
Yeah.
And we don't see the other Cenobites who are with him die.
Yeah.
Granted, we know they do because they were on the ship, but if we could have gotten just a shot of them falling apart and the light was killing them, something instead of just only seeing Pinhead's death. But I really enjoy Bloodline, and just the fact that I know the studio fucked it up so much, I'm willing to give it a pass for how choppy and how bad it is. Just like Halloween 6.
Yeah.
My number 2 is the original Hellraiser.
Yeah, no, this is one thing we've talked about, because this is one that it's surprisingly more common than you would think for people to like the second one more than the first one, because they're both very they're both great, and the sequel does exactly what a sequel should do, and so it's just more of a personal preference thing almost.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said, and for me, I prefer the second one to the first one.
Yeah.
I like how in number 2 it's more expanded.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
In the first one, it is a solid movie. It has some some pretty good acting in it.
Yeah.
But I can't get over the weird hobo.
Oh.
Who turned into a weird dragon skeleton thing at the end of the movie.
Oh yeah.
For me, it was just that hurts it for
Gotcha.
me. I like how the Cenobites are hardly in this movie. They're barely there, and that's what makes them work. That's something that Hellraiser 3 didn't understand.
Right.
Hellraiser 3, it was just Pinhead.
They're the harbingers of doom.
Yes. And I think Bloodline while they got so much right with Pinhead,
That was another thing that
it
they...
was like we got more Pinhead in part 4, but we only started getting Pinhead halfway through the movie,
Right.
versus Hellraiser 3 where it was just all the way through.
Right.
But with Hellraiser 1, we see the opening scene with Uncle Frank getting his flesh torn off.
Yeah.
And something that does hurt it for me is the actor had his voice dubbed over.
Right.
Because they didn't like his American accent.
Yeah.
And you can tell it's dubbed.
There are a couple times where you can really tell.
And for me, it kind of sucked me out.
Okay.
Because if I notice some bad dubbing and bad lip syncing, then for me it'll take me out of the movie.
Yeah.
At least for a little bit.
Yeah.
And man, it's a solid movie, and I think Ashley Lawrence does a good job as Kirsty. We get the whole evil stepmother plot with Claire Higgins, who I don't know if this was intentional or not, but Claire Higgins is like the real life version of the animated Cinderella stepmother.
Oh, that had to have been on purpose.
Like, I don't know if... I don't think Claire Higgins voiced that character, but they look so similar.
They do. I mean, it was... Well, I mean, keep in mind, the original Cinderella was in the 50s.
Yeah, I know.
But, it was... I definitely think the stylistic similarities had to have been on purpose.
Yeah, it's, like, her look was just so eerily similar.
Yeah.
And it instantly gave off the, well, this is clearly a villain.
Sure.
And she was, because she was cheating on her husband with her,
with
her
Frank.
husband's brother.
Yeah.
And, yes, Larry and Frank are brothers, and for some reason, after Frank disappeared, because they don't know if he's dead, he just disappeared, they move into his house.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make much sense. And then you can tell, this movie lets you know that it's going to be sexual.
Yeah.
With the moving of the mattress looking like humping.
Yeah.
And the stepmother is upstairs almost like touching herself, imagining Frank. And when the husband Larry cuts his hand and his blood drops on the floorboard, it brings back Frank from back from the Cenobites, and this and the transformation scene is fucking golden.
So good.
It still holds up today.
It really does.
Like that's like body horror done right.
It is.
And I think with like modern directors or modern scripts, when it comes to body horror, is that they just think if you're gross, then that's body horror.
Yeah.
No, it needs to be disturbing.
Yeah.
And almost subtle.
Yeah.
Because Frank's transformation, yes, it is gross, but it's not over the top. And you don't get too much until the actual, like yes, you see the bones coming back together, the flesh getting back on. But the reveal of the demon Frank screaming, that's what gets
Absolutely. And I mentioned Tusk earlier, which is nothing like Hellraiser, but that one does body horror, and it in a more darkly comic way, because that one's very much a horror comedy. But it's just kind of a what the fuck? Like it's that one's more ridiculous, and then the reveal is genuinely disturbing, but also like oddly funny. And that to me is when you're going to not go for subtlety, at the very least go for like black humor.
And the stepmother finds Demon Frank, and she starts helping him by bringing men over for him to kill, and he's getting their skin. And what I like is that she doesn't embrace full-on villain until near the end of the movie. Yes, she's obsessed with Frank, and she is in love with Frank instead of her own husband. And we even see in a flashback where she first meets Frank, and Frank basically like forces her to have sex, but she's also into it. It was really weird.
Yeah,
the movie's very sexual, but it's not sleazy.
Yeah.
Like, it's erotic.
Yeah. Yeah, and even then it's like the eroticism is so unnerving.
Yeah, like you're not turned on by it. It's not something that you're gonna jerk off to.
Right.
It's just like it makes you uncomfortable,
right?
But without grossing you out.
Exactly.
And when Frank goes to kill his brother, at first she tells him no.
Yeah.
And I think a couple scenes later they got into an argument, and then that's when she finally lets Frank take him, and Frank actually wears Larry's skin. And for the actor who played Larry, it was kind of fascinating to see him going from trying to be a loving husband who's trying to connect with his wife, and a good father, because that's something that I did like about the character, is that he's trying to be a good person.
He really is, yeah.
And he really is a good dad to his daughter.
Yeah.
And seeing him go from that to playing to being the villain was quite a nice touch.
Yeah.
And of course, Kirsty, when she first sees Demon Frank, that was just great.
Yeah.
And he's all, "It's me. It's Uncle Frank.
Yeah.
Come to Daddy."
Yeah.
Like, you almost had her convinced, and then you got super rapey.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like he can't help himself.
Yeah.
And then when he takes over Larry, or wears his skin, and he looks to Kirsty and he's just, "Come to Daddy." Unnerving. Very unnerving. Yeah. And then of course, Kirsty, Frank kills the stepmother.
Yeah.
And I love his "nothing personal, baby." And then of course, Kirsty gets him to admit who he is, and the Cenobites come and take him back.
Right.
The deal is that she gives them Frank, and then they leave her alone, but they decide they want her too. Right. But she's able to send them all back, luckily.
Right.
But I wanted to talk about this last.
Okay.
The iconic scene of the Cenobites appearing to Kirsty in the hospital. That scene is so great, and it still holds up.
Absolutely. The
Chatterer who's like holding on to her face, almost putting its fingers in her mouth.
Yeah.
And then just...
the effects in the first two movies, I think there's like one in the second movie that didn't age that well, but like they are remarkable. And
we have the female Cenobite who disappears. Like, this is like the original group, and they all looked great. Pinhead being the best, of course. Yeah. But Pinhead's his most iconic line in the entire franchise, and the line that's most associated with the franchise, "We'll tear your soul apart." And the music in the scene
and obviously, so like, the line "Jesus wept" became super iconic, and then "We have such sights to show you."
Yes, those three lines just those lines are describe the movie basically.
Yeah, it's like this is like gruesome. It's oddly, like, there's an odd mystique to it, and it's blasphemous in an odd way. Like, it's, but no, I wouldn't even say blasphemous, but it's about the bad guys.
Well, and they don't, and when they appear, that Pinhead describes themselves as demons to some, angels to others.
Yeah.
There is no, you're in hell. They expand that in part 2.
Right.
But...
and they are clearly like... there's
some form of demon.
Yeah.
But they're not, we're here to take over the earth.
Yeah.
It's just the box. You opened it, we came.
Yeah.
That was all it needed.
Yeah.
But it's a classic.
Yeah.
And, Clive Barker, I don't know what kind of place he was in when he came up with this, but damn.
Yeah.
And my number one, Hellraiser 2, Hellbound,
yeah.
or Hellbound, Hellraiser 2.
Whatever.
Like,
Whatever the fuck you want to call it.
yeah. I just
The second one.
the second one, it like you said earlier, it does what a sequel's supposed to do. It expands, and for me, seeing where they actually come from,
Yeah.
helps it.
The way they expanded the mythology worked really well.
And I like that it was still continuing from the first movie.
Yeah.
And getting Ashley Lawrence to come back to play Kirsty. And I think she really takes off as a character in this movie.
Yeah.
Like she seemed like a damsel in distress who got lucky.
Yeah.
In the first one. In this one, she's taking charge.
Yeah.
And she knows what she's heading into.
Yeah, she's learned from the horrible experience. Yeah.
Because she thinks she sees her dad.
Yeah.
And he like writes in blood on the wall, "I'm in hell, come save me."
Yeah.
And she doesn't hesitate. She goes into Pinhead's dimension.
Yeah.
And when Claire Higgins comes back to play the stepmom, who is just now she's a Cenobite.
Yeah.
And the evil doctor basically brings her back, and that it was so creepy because he makes out with her and she has no skin. Gross. Gross.
Yeah.
We get more of a, not necessarily a origin, but we find out where exactly that the Cenobites come from. And,
or at least where these.
Yeah, where these particular Cenobites come from and what they worship.
Right.
I find it weird that they just worship a weird shadow.
Yeah.
A shadow diamond thing.
Like, but is this Satan? Is it like an extension of Satan?
I feel like it's an early draft of Sauron.
It kind of is.
It's just without the eye, but there is a beam that's
it's
looking.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson saw that and was like, I got it. But Claire Higgins as the, she definitely vamps it up as the evil stepmother.
Absolutely.
And I do think it's a shame that she couldn't or wouldn't, one of the two, be the lead villain of the franchise moving forward.
That would have been really cool.
Because she like in the first one, you almost feel sorry for her.
Yeah.
Because she's clearly being manipulated by Frank.
Yeah.
And in this one, she is just a straight up bitch.
She's just a psycho in this one, which is incredibly enjoyable.
Oh, very much so. And speaking of psychos, the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that dude was twisted.
Holy shit.
And when the stepmom basically pushes him into the Leviathan to become a Cenobite.
Yeah.
And he's all freaking out and stuff, and then he just comes out looking all gruesome and shit. And to think, I hesitated.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's...
Okay.
Yeah. That was disturbing.
It was. The one thing I gotta harp on is the animatronic or CGI, whatever.
The one thing.
With the weird things coming out of his fingers.
Yeah.
That effect looked bad.
Yeah, that was the one I mentioned earlier. There's like one effect in this one that didn't quite work, and that was the one I was referring
but
to.
I like how he had a quick little one-liner when he was taking on the other Cenobites. I'm taking over this operation.
Yeah.
And he had that weird laugh thing.
Yeah.
It was so.
It was
bizarre.
Odd, yeah. But I kind of love that.
It was like. It's unsettling.
Yeah.
It's not. Well, that's dumb. It was.
Yeah, it was this. What?
And I do like how Kirsty confronts Pinhead and shows him a picture of him as a human. It's just, I remember. It's just.
Yeah.
I just think this movie is so much better than part one.
It's great. It is great. I love it.
Part one is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I think part 2 just blows it up in all the right ways.
Well, I think that's what I was saying is why I like Saw 2 slightly more than the first one, is I think it's kind of the same principle.
So part 1's very contained, and then part 2 is just, okay, we do have such sights to show you now.
Yeah, now we have the scale, the budget to give it the scale that it should have. Now that we've established it.
And I also like how the stepmom kind of gets payback on Frank.
Oh, yeah.
She visits his hell and basically, kills him again. I don't know what happens after you're already dead and you die again. But...
You go to double hell.
But she kills him, and as she's killing him, she has the line for him, "Nothing personal, baby."
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, yeah.
That was good.
He definitely deserved that.
That was good.
But so that's my list for Hellraiser.
Yeah.
My number 10, Revelations. Number 9, Deader. These titles, man. 8, Judgment. 6, Hellworld. Or I'm sorry, 7, Hellseeker. 6, Hellworld.
Yeah.
5, Hell on Earth. 4, Inferno. 3, Bloodline. 2, Hellraiser the original. Number 1. Hellraiser 2, Hellbound. Can we also talk about how all these movies have a subtitle?
Yeah, this is one of the only series where all of them have one.
Yeah, or with the exception of the first one, for obvious reasons.
Yeah, because that's...
But they also stopped numbering them after 3.
You're right, they did.
Hellraiser 1, Hellraiser 2, Hellbound, then Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, and then it's just Bloodline, Inferno, and then so on and so on.
Yeah.
Alright, so that was my list.
Right.
What's your list?
My list, well, of course, number 10 is Revelations. I mean, just...
I feel like it's been a while since we've agreed on the bottom of the barrel.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think...
That's how bad Revelations is. We both know it deserves to be at the bottom.
Yeah, because Saw and Friday the 13th, we were both in agreement as to what the worst one was. We've had...
we were different on Halloween, and we were different on Nightmare on Elm Street.
And Texas Chainsaw.
And definitely Texas Chainsaw. Leatherface is trash. We are in agreement once again.
Right. But... Yeah, it's just, it feels so, the way we're saying how Hellworld feels so 2005, this movie felt so 2011.
Elaborate.
In the sense of, it was the attractive college students.
Ah, okay.
It gets sleazy, and then it turns into a basic cable soap opera. It felt very hard R 90210 or something like that, or Dawson's Creek or something like that, where it was then all of a sudden
Pinhead makes that weird crying face when he doesn't get his victim.
But James Vanderbeek would have been a better Pinhead than this, though.
Oh Lord. Yes.
I feel bad because, the actor tried, it just did not work at all.
Well, he was already screwed from the beginning because the makeup was so bad.
Right.
And I know the poster is abysmal.
Yeah.
It's just the his head.
Yeah.
Looking all,
looking constipated. And
that's a good one. Yeah. And it's just, you can already tell from that, it's just,
this
nosedived pretty quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we thought Hellworld was bad.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, my number 9 is Hellworld.
Oh, come on!
Here's the thing, though. I also think it's hilarious.
You think it's worse than Deader?
Yes. Here's why.
It's so much fun, though!
That's the thing. It is, for the wrong reasons. It is so entertaining for the wrong reasons. And when I rank stuff like that, entertainment value, if it's not what it's intended, doesn't boost it for me. I tend to go, again, critically, objectively with my rankings and everything. It is downright hilarious in a lot of it.
Sweet cheeks?
Yeah, exactly. Just the aggressive, again, all this cyber horror. That was this big trend in the early mid 2000s with like Fear.com and Cry Wolf, and this was a little bit after that, but there was this movie called Smiley that was so fucking bad.
I actually remember that movie.
That one was that was way worse than Hellworld. But you know, it had you know, YouTubers in it, and that kind of
that was really the only thing Hellworld was missing.
Yeah, was
a couple YouTubers.
All it was missing was Shane Dawson. But and again, it feels like it really feels like they screwed this cast, because again, like we're saying, Lance Henriksen is selling it. Henry Cavill and Catherine Winnick, they're good actors. It just, I could not get over the plot and the tone and just this whole "the internet is terrifying" thing that just was in so many movies like this.
I remember in the movie, Catherine Winnick's character seemingly calls the cops.
Yeah.
And one of the police officers show up, and Lance Henriksen starts to explain away. He's just, I think the cop is, what is it that you do? And Lance Henriksen's smoking, and he throws the cigarette down. I love to party.
That was good. Again, this was
he sells it, like he makes it so much better than what it should be.
Lance Henriksen in this was basically Malcolm McDowell in half of his filmography. But
it's like, yeah, I know I'm awesome.
Yeah,
but what you gonna do about it? I can do whatever I want.
Or Eric Roberts in half of his filmography. It's like, he's a good actor. He's gonna give you a good performance. He's gonna give it his all. But Jesus Christ. Just this whole, it felt very much like, you know what the Chick tracts were?
No.
So Jack Chick was the name of this guy who, he was like this fire and brimstone evangelist who made these, like, you know, a tract is like a religious pamphlet or whatever. That they were these comics. They were like comic strips or whatever that were proselytizing this very, like, again, fear-mongering fire and brimstone. And the most famous one he made was called Dark Dungeons. And it was about how evil Dungeons and Dragons is and how much it'll warp your mind. And they actually...
Good grief.
And it ends with the girl hanging herself because she couldn't separate the real world from the fantasy world. Like, I mean, and it was about he did them about, like, dancing and teaching evolution in school.
He does realize the movie Footloose is the thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But it was Footloose if you were supposed to root for the parents. Like, that was still one of my favorite jokes I ever made was, I feel like Mike Pence watches Footloose and roots for the parents. But it was that type of thing where it was like it was just all about whatever the kids are into these days. It's terrifying and it'll kill you.
And that's what the internet was supposed to be in 2005.
And I couldn't shake that vibe from Hellraiser.
Oh, man.
As much as it is so entertaining. But again, to me, it's like, I still, The Room is a worse movie than, I don't know, Halloween 5. And we all agree it's a much worse movie. But that movie is infinitely more entertaining.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, that makes sense.
It's an entertaining type of bad, but it doesn't negate being bad, I guess. And again, this is where...
And that's how you would describe Hellworld.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not The Room bad. If Lance Henriksen was in The Room, that would have been amazing.
Oh, they wouldn't have been able to afford Lance Henriksen.
Just says, people are very strange these days.
You are tearing me apart, Lisa.
You think girls like to cheat like guys do? No, if anyone, Lance Henriksen would be Peter.
But I just want to watch.
No, that's Denny.
Oh, that's Denny.
No, Peter's the gun that's like the nerdy looking guy that's like the psychologist. That,
okay.
You always play psychologist, Peter. Anyway, exactly. Or it could easily be Chris R. Where's my fucking money, Denny? Just pulls him. I don't have 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah, definitely would have made that movie better.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine Hellworld without Lance Hendrickson? If they would have just gotten some random guy?
that would have put it in Revelations territory if you didn't have Lance Henriksen.
Yeah, probably.
Not quite as bad, but more like.
What I'm curious about is that since it is taken from a short story called Dark Can't Breathe, I haven't been able to track down.
I need to find this
story.
because
again, I like the premise of they're buried alive the whole time, and they're basically Lance Henriksen just left them cell phones so he can play head games with them.
Here's the thing.
Head games.
Here's the thing. What could have made this
foreigner for you?
Yeah. What could have redeemed a lot of this movie is if they almost went in a, here's what I mean, in a Scream direction. And here's what I mean. If the character of Pinhead was familiar to them, and at the end it was revealed they're really, like, if they didn't reveal a real Pinhead at the end. If it really was, there is no, like, this is a movie. You've been hallucinating this character the whole time. Like, I feel like they almost could have, if this was a movie in which like Hellraiser as a movie existed or something like that. Not that they repeatedly referred to it, but like if at the end maybe you see, Lance Henriksen with a Hellraiser DVD as he's as he's cleaning up after the party or something. So it's like he made them see this character that like terrified him, and he like, I don't know. I feel like that could have given it something. I
don't know how well that would work though, especially since it was a internet game.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
I just mean the whole hallucinating buried alive twist could have been cool. It's just, and again, that's the part that was cool. That to me, okay, so that ending to me is the scene at the end of Saw 3D where Dr. Gordon is in the bathroom again.
Okay.
This was an awesome scene that the rest of the movie did not deserve.
That's fair.
Or an awesome moment the rest of the movie did not deserve. Him picking up the saw, and again, like we talked about, just Carrie Ellis being a great actor in an awful movie where he just kind of picks up the saw and just kind of has that like memories, and then I don't think so, and him saying game over. It's like these are all really cool beats that the rest of the movie did not deserve.
That would be a good way to describe Hellworld. I can give you that.
But this is way more entertaining than Saw 3D. Because this one has far more... This one's far sillier. It doesn't feel just quite as miserable.
And at least their blood's red.
Right! It's not the Pepto-Bismol blood. Well, my number 8 is Deader.
Okay. Please justify how you think this is better than Hellworld, or why it's at number 8, because I mean the only reason why it's not number 10 is because it's not Revelations.
Here, I have a couple of things with this one. First of all, one thing when I saw it is I was so relieved to find out that like Deader was like what these people were called, and it wasn't like more dead. It wasn't like they were trying to be cool by saying Deader instead of more dead. Like, it wasn't like that made it a little bit less, feel a little less jokey.
I can almost imagine a trailer.
This feels like a Dumb and Dumber horror movie, like Dumb and Dumber, Deader.
Well, I can almost imagine like a very bad trailer for this movie of just, if you thought the body count was high before, Hellraiser, dead.
Even deader. I love the character of Charles.
Charles?
That's the really smug, like her boss.
Oh, I forgot about
British
him.
guy. Like, I love that character.
I forgot about
And
him.
he's played by the same actor that played the butler in The Parent Trap.
Are you serious?
The Lindsay Lohan remake of The Parent Trap. That's the same guy that played the butler in that. But
Oh,
in
shit.
this
I'm gonna
very
have to look that up now.
sleazy movie. But I love that actor, and I thought he was great, and just, it was almost of like Uncle Charles, where it's like, this guy is clearly a good actor, and doing this very, smug, sinister performance, and although I think his performance in this was better than in Just Takes Manhattan, but in a movie that, again, it's like, this character would have been so great if this was good horror. It just, I like that character a lot. And I like some of the dingy, environment and, stuff. I like the fact that this does feel like, this really does feel like an underground drug ring kind of, it wasn't Party Mansion. Party Mansion was more fun because it was crazier and it led to more silliness.
You can just imagine Pinhead taking a shot of vodka.
You just cut to him. You just cut to him at karaoke. Carry my. I love you guys. You guys are my best friends.
Oh man.
Hellraiser, drunkard.
Somehow would still be better than Dead in Revelations, in my opinion.
Honestly, Deader is very bad. I cannot tell you enough. I'm not saying it's good at all.
I don't understand if Pinhead wants the lead character to go to hell, isn't she giving him what he wants by killing herself? Like, that's not a pass into heaven.
Yeah.
Or is it just you're going to hell, just not his hell?
Yeah, like what's the logic here?
It didn't seem to make sense to me.
Yeah,
and I feel like they were trying to since they wanted to have continuity with Bloodline, I feel like they were trying to recreate the in the modern day generation when he gets sent back to hell and he's no.
Yeah.
I feel like they basically try to recreate that when she finally, does or when she kills herself. He's just no.
Yeah.
Just it's one person. Like you have so many other souls. Why is she so important?
Right. Did you ever see the movie Devil?
Yes. Oh, you mean when they're all in the elevator?
Yeah.
Toast jelly side up?
Yeah. Like, okay.
Wait, was it jelly side down?
Jelly side down is when they are in the presence of Satan.
Okay.
But like the idea of Satan is so petty that he's gonna waste this entire day messing with these people who are just assholes. It's not like they raped and murdered anyone, they're just assholes. And he's gonna waste all this time just to mess with them and then drag them to, like, don't you have other things to worry about?
I feel like it was his day off.
Exactly.
And he was just, I'm gonna go have some fun.
Exactly. It was like, shouldn't you be like in like blood mines or something? Like, isn't there a shit ton of stuff to do?
Now that movie, we're eventually gonna have to talk about it because
that one is full of unintentional humor.
And the devil reveal scene again. It's one of those. It's a good scene and a terrible in a terrible movie.
But we'll talk about that eventually. But yeah,
I don't think Deader has a scene where it's that the scene is so good it shouldn't be in such a terrible movie.
It does.
As much as I like the end of Pinhead killing Winter and him dropping his awesome lines.
Yeah.
It's not that good.
Oh no, it's
just
not. It's
the
not.
best part of a bad movie.
Yeah. This is I say all the time, sometimes I wish I could give ties. And this is one that would have been a tie. just because I feel like Deader was consistently bad. I think Hellworld, the scenes that I felt like Hellworld had better highs, but lows that were at least as low, if not lower.
Okay, that's fair.
Just because, to me, a movie being unintentionally funny does negate points instead of giving it more. Because to me, it's like, I shouldn't be laughing. You're doing your job wrong. Yeah, Better is fucking awful. What else can we say? Now we get into...
It left me for dead.
Now we get into the crop of meh.
Okay.
And this one might surprise you. My number 7 is Hell on Earth.
Okay.
Again...
That's a wrap.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, that stuff was so... Like I said before, it was very, how do you do, fellow kids? Like, it was, look, guys, the 90s.
It's like if the Looney Tunes met leather.
Yeah, it feels like if Animaniacs or Mad Magazine did a Hellraiser thing, they would have, like, CDs and stuff like it. It feels...
It did feel very, like, Mad Maxy.
No, Mad Magazine.
Oh, okay, I thought you said Mad Max.
No, Mad Magazine.
Okay.
Like, the way that when they would do their cartoon, like, drawings, like, when they did R2-D2, he had, like, a trash can lid.
Okay.
Where it'll look like some, you know, bizarre, you know, or some like, stupid everyday household object or something to, you know, to make it look sillier. And so, like, I feel like having the CDs or whatever feels like something they would do.
Okay.
And again, trying to make Pinhead... It didn't go into the same territory that, like, the Dream Master did with trying to make Freddy cool, but they tried to do that with Pinhead a little bit. I feel like with making him making him quippier and...
I would say Hellraiser 3, he definitely has some one-liners, whereas in the first two, he didn't.
Yeah, and again, this one tried to make him a more traditional horror villain.
I did enjoy the church scene.
Oh yeah,
like that to me, that's an iconic shot of him mimicking Jesus. I am the way.
Yeah, that felt very Pinhead.
That felt cool.
But yeah,
there's the cool scene in a movie.
There's the cool scene. Yeah, exactly. Well, that, and again, how we talked about, like, leading up to it, it was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. And then just complete, tank.
If I could just describe Pinhead in this movie compared to how he was in the first two, I could just imagine the guy who owned the club. It pains me to see you like this. I can't get over that face. It's just, what was the director thinking? What was the actor thinking?
That felt, it was Edgar in Men in Black, is what it was. It was like, yeah, he still looked like a person, but was acting completely like, not like a human being.
And he was supposed to be, so it doesn't work.
Right, like, exactly. My number 6 is Judgment.
Okay.
The reason that it's not lower is, again, all the auditor stuff I loved. I felt like this is back to being, you know, a Hellraiser movie. That character, the atmosphere, like the room he's in and the way it's shot and lit and his dialogue, like, that felt like Hellraiser again.
I like the sunglasses too.
Yeah. It had that very industrial kind of Nine Inch Nails video sort of look to it. It was way better shot than certainly the, you know, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th movies.
Yeah.
And, you know, the...
Hellworld was so green.
Yeah. Well, that was also the style.
Internet!
Yeah. Well, that was selling. Think how green, like, Saw was.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And The Matrix. And, like, it was... Because ever since The Matrix did that, like, they all had to do that.
Maybe Maybe.
Because that meant intense, I guess. Everything had to be lit like a subway station.
You know, can you just imagine Pinhead in the Matrix?
He's already dressed for it.
Just free your mind.
Yeah. Pinhead almost is the anti-Morpheus.
Oh
in a way.
my god.
He's dressed like him. He's really, really white.
He's bald?
Yeah, he's bald but white. And he's kind of Morpheus's yin, I guess. But
I'd pay to see that movie.
oh, absolutely, Morpheus versus Pinhead. Hell yeah. That's the movie should be called. Hell yeah, Morpheus versus Pinhead.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
Both had terrible sequels called Revelations.
Oh shit! They're in the same universe. They have to be
Confirmed.
Oh man, that means we get the Pinhead from Revelations. So yeah, I don't want to see it.
Good point. Well, that's another thing. This Pinhead was pretty good.
Yes, I think the guy who played him in Judgment brought back that elegance and class.
Yeah,
that Pinhead is
certain
supposed
stoicism. You know, again, he's like a Zen monk in an odd way, just with malicious. Well, not even malicious intent, but just with much darker intent, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, that doesn't mean it was good. To me, that's what made it. Whatever. You know, as opposed to just like, to me that made it easier for me not to dwell on the cliches and the weird gross out gags and stuff like that.
Yeah, for me, I couldn't get past the gross.
I get that
because it was so over the top.
Yeah,
and
I don't know. We talked about that also with Saw 3, where the pig trap kind of messed you up.
Gross for shock factor doesn't work for me. It turns me off from the rest of the movie. Yeah, because at that point it's like, oh, so you're giving up.
Yeah, I don't think it has no place in any movie, but not a Hellraiser movie. I think there are movies where that can work. But it has to be the type of movie.
And it's not that Hellraiser isn't the type of movie, because it obviously is for, Hellraiser's supposed to have that grossness to it. But again, you look at Hellraiser 1 and how they did it versus what Judgment does, and it's just I just can't get past it. Yeah,
I think there are like 70s horror movies that are like some of the like old cannibal horror movies. I think it kind of works there because it fits better in that movie, but like it just not the type.
You ever seen Maniac?
I love
the
Maniac.
original.
I love Maniac.
That movie's really gross, but it doesn't feel like over the top too much.
Yeah, because that one is all about what an awful. It's about examining a very demented person, and the world is through his eyes. But yeah, so I couldn't fully dislike it because of the stuff with the auditor, and again the cinematography and the environments in it. It felt certainly a lot closer to Hellraiser than the past few had.
I'll give you that, but the weird heaven versus Pinhead that
was kind of...
For me, it was overreaching.
There's a movie that does something like that better. And it's actually two movies. It's The Devil's Carnival and The Devil's Carnival Alleluia. They are horror musicals directed by Darren Lynn Bousman.
Oh.
And the first one takes place primarily in hell, and the second one takes place primarily in heaven. And they're like these sort of, again, very kind of industrial rock musicals, but the songs are like really good. The first one has Bill Moseley in it.
Oh,
has a cameo in it. Dayton Callie from Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah,
he plays the guy who's like, I forget what they call him, but he's like the bookkeeper, or he's like the rule keeper.
I could see him doing that.
They kind of have him looking like Danny DeVito's Penguin a little bit, without the nose. But Alexa Vega is in it.
Damn.
Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch is in it.
I'm definitely gonna have to find this and check it out.
It's very interesting. And then the sequel is the devil decides to lead a revolution. Oh, Sean Patrick Flannery's in it too.
Damn.
The devil decides to lead a revolution to try to take over heaven. Paul Sorvino from Goodfellas plays God. And he plays God like briefly in the first one. And then in the second one has even more like stars in it. The second one has Barry Bostwick, David Hasselhoff, Tech Nine, Ted Neely, who, if you don't know, he was Jesus in Jesus Christ Superstar, in the movie of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Does he play Jesus?
He does not.
Damn it.
But they do throw in a Jesus Christ Superstar reference.
Nice.
From Adam Pascal, who is a Broadway veteran, and he also played Theo, the lead singer of Dewey's band in School of Rock. But in that one, they depict heaven. It's more about organized religion than it is literally God. It's like heaven is very militaristic, and it's this kind of 1984 style kind of fascist state. And that makes a little more sense in that case, because you can tell it's more about religion than it is actually God. Like, it does feel a little bit, we're trying to be edgy and provocative, but at the same time it works a little bit more because you're also not supposed to take them too seriously.
And with Judgment, I feel like they almost introduced the angel heaven element just because it's what else is there left?
They couldn't think of anything else to do. It wasn't predicated on that being the concept.
Literally the plot is, maybe the puzzle box isn't working anymore, so we have to think of a new way to get people to come to us. And they even find a more outdated way of doing it.
Yeah.
Because I think they send letters.
Yeah.
Who sends letters, man?
I mean, it could have been worse.
Get a Snapchat, Pinhead.
No, then we'd be back for another hell world.
Get an Instagram. Facebook.
Pinhead with the puppy filter.
How do I turn this thing off?
His puppy filter's Cujo.
No, it's Cerberus.
Nice. So your number 5 is
Hellseeker. This one just comes down to, for one, Dean Winters being a fucking badass, and then also, I like some of the technical aspects to it. Like, I like the way it's shot. I like that real grimy environment. I think it's got some cool Dutch angles that make it feel very nightmarish.
This one tones down on the gross stuff.
Yeah.
It's just very sleazy.
It is, and I didn't hate that.
I didn't hate it because the sleaziness wasn't too much.
I felt like
it was. Yeah. It was erotic without being porn.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th remake.
It was but no, I kind of liked it.
I can't get past the fact that Ashley Lawrence hated it.
See, that to me, that is why it's below my number 4. One big reason.
It's still top 5.
I mean,
out of 10. But again, it's Hellraiser.
I'd say again, at least half of them, if not more, are in the meh category, and the fact that Ashley Lawrence hated it does mean a lot. But I also can look at it and go, well, yeah, because it wasn't supposed to be a Hellraiser movie. Of course, her part wasn't very big. It was an afterthought already. And I hate that she was not pleased with the movie. But that's the reason it's not. That's the reason it's not lower than it is. My number 4 is Bloodline. Bloodline, again, we talked about. Bloodline was really ambitious, and we both love what they wanted to do with it.
Speaking of miniseries and all that stuff, I feel like Bloodline, or at least this particular plot, would have worked well in like a series.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, it should have been a 2-part finale. It should have been a 2-part finale, and both movies should have been allowed to be over 2 hours.
Yes.
Because they had so much they wanted to do, and the studio wouldn't let them really go as far and as ambitious as they wanted to go. And so it ends up being kind of a mess, but it's a mess of good parts. It does get a little corny towards the end, I think.
I would agree.
Because I think a lot of the sci-fi stuff doesn't quite work.
It definitely didn't age well.
Yeah.
Or, like, the sci-fi stuff did not age well.
But, again, I love what they wanted to do with it. And so it's not hard to watch by any stretch.
Oh, no,
it's a very breezy watch.
Usually, if I'm going to put in a Hellraiser movie, Bloodline's usually the first one I try to seek out.
Okay, yeah. It's,
And it was number 3 on my list.
Yeah.
Like, it's not my all-time favorite Hellraiser, but if I'm just trying to sit back and have a good time, I can just throw that in.
Right.
Or Hellworld.
Yeah. Yeah.
For 2 completely different reasons.
Absolutely. But yeah. But part of the reason why it was your 3 and my 4 is because I like my number 3 more than you do, and that's Hellraiser Inferno. Which I think obviously it does suffer from becoming a Hellraiser movie, but at the same time, the non-Hellraiser stuff I think is legitimately great. I think it's brought down by it being a Hellraiser movie.
Well, and that's honestly why I put it at my number 4 spot instead of my number 3.
Yeah.
The Hellraiser stuff was like, alright.
Yeah, right. They got to put Pinhead in there somewhere. And I'm totally with you that I wish we'd gotten James Remar like the whole time. But I also, this is another one where I love what they were trying to do. And I feel like they mostly succeeded until the studio made them,
I feel with Inferno, it's a lot more of a psychological horror than it is body horror.
It is, yeah. Again, this is a like detective thriller horror film. Like it's like with Seven or Silence of the Lambs, but this is a detective thriller that goes into horror territory.
And that's something that's kind of fascinates me about this franchise in general, is that the first 2 and the first part of 3 all feel like body horror.
Yeah.
And then the end of 3 and part 4 feel like slashers.
Yeah.
And then part 5 feels like psychological, and then they go back to body horror just in a super gross way.
Right.
And Hellworld even feels like more of a slasher.
Yeah, Hellworld goes back to slasher. Yeah, because Inferno, Hellseeker, and Deader are all kind of in that sort of sleazy detective thriller that also like sits equally in the horror category. And I just feel like Inferno did it better than any of the others. And again, Scott Derrickson is a great director.
Again, the score
is
at the end
so
of the
good.
movie is fantastic. The fact that it didn't get a theatrical release is a damn crime.
Right.
It's that good.
Because it's certainly better than 3. I think it's better than 4, but I know but even then, it's like even you only think 4 is 1 better.
Yeah.
Like it's like both of us think that this is one of the 4 best, and because 3 was very whatever. But this one, I feel like this is good. It would be better if they let it be its own movie, but the Hellraiser elements don't feel quite as distracting as they do in something like Hellworld, where it's like you can tell this should not have been a Hellraiser movie. But I love the performances in it, and I think Scott Derrickson again is a great director, knows how to do tension and atmosphere. Like we're saying, the score is great. I think this movie is perfectly okay. It's not great, but I think it's okay.
It's good, but not great.
Yeah.
And I can tolerate good.
Yeah, this is. It's not great, but it's solid. This is solid.
Speaking of movie scores, Bloodline also has some good score.
It does.
When Pinhead first enters the movie, that music going on was great.
Oh, absolutely.
Hellraisers always have some pretty damn good music.
They do.
With the exception of Hellworld and Revelations.
Well, yeah. And again, I actually do have 2 at 2 and 1 at 1. This would be a tie if I didn't have to really nitpick. And I think the only reason is because, one, I feel like just the Frank transformation in the first one, to me, was just so damn good that I felt like 2 met the bar, but didn't quite top it.
Okay.
And again, that's probably just because Frank, the performance is phenomenal. The dubbing didn't bother me as much, and here's why. I'm used to watching a lot of like Italian horror movies and like spaghetti westerns and stuff like that. And what they would do with those is, for most of them, they would have the Italian actors speak their lines phonetically in English. They didn't know, they were sort of told, here's what you're saying, but they didn't actually speak English.
Okay.
And then they would dub them with actors who do speak English, so that the inflections were right and stuff like that. And I'm used to that, so it didn't really bother me per se. I think it was unnecessary, but it didn't take me out of the movie. And again, that's just because I love a lot of, Italian movies, and most Italian movies that were made for like an American market as well did that.
I know in Hellraiser 2, they do bring back the actor who played Frank, and they didn't dub him in part 2.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of another reason why I kind of have part 2 slightly.
That's fair.
Because it's not a wide margin. It's like razor thin.
Again, and that's kind of where I am with it too. It's just, I don't know. I think just the Frank stuff I loved so much. And this is the first one. I mean, it's the first one I saw because I didn't want to watch them out of order. But before I realized that after the first 4, it doesn't matter. But 10 Revelations, no contest. I don't think for just about anybody. 9 Hellworld, but it's not without entertainment value, certainly. 8 Deader, 7 Hell on Earth, the third one. 6 Judgment, 5 Hellseeker, 4 Bloodline, 3 Inferno, 2 Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, and number 1 Hellraiser.
Man, I think this is the most diverse list that we have.
It really is.
Like, we have the same top 4, and then we have the same number 10, and everything else in between is just all over the place.
Yeah. Halloween we had a lot of scrambling, but...
Well, that's because I know everything about it, and you're just...
I was waiting for you to say it. Sorry for siding with John Carpenter and what he wanted for the franchise.
Oh, shut up.
That was stupid.
You fucking know it all.
I think next time we talked about doing Child's Play.
Yes.
What we're doing next time?
Next time we will cover Child's Play. We can't put this series in. Unfortunately. Because I'm honestly not sure how to do that.
Yeah, because with a series,
it's multiple.
Yeah, so you can't just be like,
it's
this movie, this episode, this movie, this episode, this episode, this movie.
That would be a lot to cover.
Exactly. So we're just gonna do the movies. We are including the direct video ones, but
maybe in a future episode we'll talk about the series.
We might do an episode where we talk about series spin-offs, like Ash vs. Evil Dead, the Tremors series, stuff like that. We might want to do something like that.
I'd be down for that at some point.
I was going to say Freddy's Nightmares, but that had really not much to do with.
Speaking of Freddy, I went and watched that Dream Warriors music video the other day.
Isn't it great?
Oh my gosh, I love the ending. The song is terrible.
Oh, I love the song.
I'm not a fan.
I'm a huge 80s metal fan.
I like 80s rock music. I don't know. This just wasn't my jam.
I see.
But I love the ending.
I loved the song before
up.
I even saw the movie, though.
Okay, that's
so
fair.
it was. Oh, I already loved the song. I wasn't attached to the movie first.
Okay. I did like the end when Freddy wakes up. Who are those guys? That was great.
Yeah, I remember Robert Englund, or no, it was Dokken, told a story. The band said something about they remember doing coke off of the Freddy's claw.
Wow.
Which, does it get more 80s metal than an 80s hair metal band doing coke off of Freddy Krueger's glove? I mean,
let's get high.
Yeah, exactly. What a rush. But yeah, so we're covering Child's Play next time. We've already discussed our disdain for Sea of Chucky.
Spoiler alert, I'm fairly certain that's at the bottom of both of our lists.
It is. Although we had a fan in the comments say that they actually don't hate that one. But really just for the sheer fact that they don't mind the fact that it was a comedy.
Yeah.
And I get that. But yeah, so next up will be Child's Play. Until then, I'm Will Lastly.
I'm Alex Maynard.
Until next time, be right back!